There's been a 35% increase in termination notices issued by landlords to tenants in the third quarter of the year compared to the same period last year. A total of 5,405 notices were issued between July and September, according to the Residential Tenancies Board. The change comes ahead of new rental rules which come into force next year.
There has been anecdotal evidence of smaller landlords leaving the market, but today came official confirmation. 60% of notices to quit are issued because landlords want to sell. The Residential Tenancies Board says it expected a rise in property owners leaving the market.
There was a significant number of landlords, about 27%, what we might term accidental landlords, who had taken out mortgages potentially during the Celtic Tiger era, who at some stage intended to exit the market. And when you have a period of major regulatory change, which we're facing into on the 1st of March, it may be that a number of them have decided that this is the time that they wish to exit the market.
Despite the increase in smaller landlords leaving, there is a rise in firms with 100 or more rental properties entering the sector. That's led to an increase in the overall number of tenancies, particularly in the capital. It's clear many landlords are leaving the market because of changes being introduced by the government to the rental sector to take effect from next March. But the Minister for Housing, James Brown, says those changes will still go ahead.
The changes that we are bringing in is going to substantially increase supply and ultimately drive down rents and ensure that we have the tenancies that we need for people to rent. Obviously, we've an awful lot of other measures as well.
Those new rules mean after March, smaller landlords will have to offer renters 6-year tenancies. After 2032, those property owners will be able to reset the rent to a higher level beyond current restrictions for a further 6 years. There are also tighter rules limiting the circumstances under which landlords can sell, and that's prompting some to exit the market now because of the government's changes. The big question is whether the new rules will work. David Murphy, RTE News.
Well, across the country, there is concern about the lack of supply in the rental market and the real impact that smaller landlords leaving the market is having and will have in the coming months.
Like many towns across the country, rents have increased here in Mullingar. And although it's a rent pressure zone, the difference in just a few years is stark. In 2019, for example, the average rent here was around €900 a month. Now it's at the €1,700 per month mark.
Over the past 12 months, I think approximately 30% of our sales have been landlords exit the market. On the other side of it then, I think all of our sales, I think maybe less than 5% have been to people who are entering the market, I suppose. So that's something that's probably not sustainable. And that's why you've seen rents increasing so much purely on a supply base that there's no properties there to rent at the moment.
The data indicates that many smaller landlords are leaving the market ahead of the new rules next year. And regionally, and in towns like Mullingar, that's a major issue.
Typically, these are people maybe that maybe a couple that maybe met, had a property each themselves, maybe moved into one of the properties, kept one then for themselves. And look, they're terrified now that if they ever need to sell this property, that they're going to be restricted from doing so under the new rules. I think it's a mistake by government, in my view.
So how do renters feel?
I rent in Dublin, in Stoneybatter, in a rent pressure zone. We've actually recently gotten a notice of termination, like a lot of people actually, and like looking at the market for when we have to be out, it's tough. Like
very hard, yeah. I live in Cavan at the moment. I was trying there. I was trying Dublin. I was trying a lot of places in the country.
As the season of goodwill approaches, many renters will be hoping that sentiment remains well into next year. Sinead Hussey, RTE News, Mullingar.
Well, let's get more on this now from our Economics and Public Affairs editor, David Murphy. David, these new rules are supposed to make things more secure for renters, help with the affordability. In the short term, though, and perhaps the long term, what kind of an impact is it going to have on renters?
Well, I think the real problem is between now and the 1st of March when the new regulations come in. One of the issues is the regulations are complicated and they're causing a lot of confusion for landlords, and many of them are concerned about the restrictions on selling properties. And as a result, there's a window of opportunity for them now, in their view, for some of them, to get out of the market. And that's resulting in a certain level of disruption. Now, it has to be said, there is an increase in very large companies with 100 or more properties coming into the market, particularly in Dublin. The problem seems to be more outside Dublin, outside the capital, where smaller landlords are pulling out. Now, the concern is that this could negatively affect tenants until the new regulations come in. There is going to be some form of information campaign, hopefully clearing up some of the confusion for landlords. But the concern is now we will see an increase in smaller landlords pulling out.
All right, Economics and Public Affairs Editor David Murphy, thank you.